the village of McFarland. I am also the Vice President of Dane County Cities and Villages Association. Last year, we decided that it might be helpful if we did some informal Zoom meetings throughout the year when there were items of interest, speakers of interest, topics that we thought would be useful to just get together and chat about a little bit. Clearly, this one's pretty popular. It looks like we have 27 people on the call today, so really appreciate everyone joining with us. I had reached out to Kathy Kuntz, the director of the county's Office of Energy and Climate Change, a couple of months ago when we were working through an issue with a solar project, and I was wondering how to proceed. And from that conversation, I said, hey, would you mind actually sharing some of this information with other members of the Dane County Cities and Villages Association so that we can all be brought up to speed? We just do these informal lunchtime talks. We're real nice. We won't ask too hard of questions, we promise. And she said absolutely that was something that she would love to do. So thank you, Kathy, for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, Anne, for helping to set this up. I will really just turn this over. Kathy has a presentation that should last somewhere in the range of 20 minutes. She's going to give us some basic information, but she's really here to take our questions and help us all to understand what type of resource that we have with her office and the power of all of us working together on our individual community-based projects to support and preserve and improve, hopefully, the environment that we all live in. So, Kathy, with no further ado, I will turn this over to you. Anne will be sharing the links for the presentation and for informational piece that Kathy has prepared for us in the chat. She'll also send it out through the Dane County Cities and Villages Association newsletter and posting it to the association's website. So it'll be available for folks after this meeting. And I suspect Kathy's going to let us have her phone number. We have her name anyway, so we can just look her up on the county's website. She'll be available. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and take it away.
Thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today. So my aim is to really give you a little bit of a preview of some of the federal funding on the horizon that can support local sustainability and cost containment efforts in your communities. And then we will, as Carolyn said, open it up for questions. So if folks aren't familiar with our office, the Office of Energy and Climate Change, we're inside the county exec's office. We're the ones who created the county-wide climate action plan. We do with the city of Madison, the Sustainable Leaders Collaborative, where we bring folks together around different topics to learn from each other. We do the Climate Champions program. Bottom line is, my whole aim is to help you do things effectively in your communities, because that's how we get to our countywide goals. So in that light, we have some exciting new federal help for us in all of this. And I'm going to talk about two bills. I'm going to mostly talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, but I want to first just mention the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, because there is still funding from this bill that's still making its way onto the ground in our communities. You know, the infrastructure bill passed last November, and this was that effort to really invest in infrastructure. So most of the headlines were about roads and bridges, but this is also where the funding for electric vehicle charging along the interstates comes in. There was substantial funding for our low-income weatherization program, the program that helps low-income households make their homes more energy efficient. That is just starting to roll through the system so that our agencies will be able to serve more folks. Our state energy office, the Office of Energy Innovation, is getting an increase in their funds. And there are some energy efficiency and conservation block grant dollars that are going to be coming down. So again, a number of these things are still being finalized, and these are sort of going through institutional channels, which is really different than the Inflation Reduction Act. So, You've probably by now heard someone say that the Inflation Reduction Act is the largest climate bill in history, in US history, in global history. It's a bill that really has a lot of carrots. It's about making clean energy cheaper than fossil fuels. And it's doing that mostly through tax credits that are in place for 10 years. And I think the estimates I've seen is about 2/3 of all of the funding under the Inflation Reduction Act is coming as tax credits. Why that's a significant thing is tax credits don't get a budget and then run out of funding. Tax credits are funded no matter sort of how big those requests are. So that's an exciting opportunity for us because it kind of means there are channels of funding for projects like we've never seen before. And usually whenever I talk about the IRA, I just, it's a pretty strategic bill. It's making clean energy cheaper. Well, it also signals to like the solar industry that incentives are going to be the same for 10 years so entities can grow with more confidence. And there are additional incentives when things are made in the USA or use union labor. So there are benefits for lots of constituencies here. The benefits for you as a local government are kind of astonishing. And the first of those is there's actual money here for you for capital investments that reduce operating costs. And we'll talk through the specifics of that in a minute. But the bottom line is they've retooled how they're doing what are typically called tax credits, so that even though you don't pay federal taxes as a local government, you can get sort of direct pay, like a rebate from the federal government under those tax credit provisions. There are also a bunch of funding opportunities here that will affect schools, nonprofits, businesses, residents, renters, landlords in your community for renewable energy, for energy efficiency, for electrification, for trees. So this, I get super excited when I talk about the IRA because not only is it going to fund projects for your operations, it's also going to be a way for you to help entities in your community fund projects that really help keep money in your local community. So you're sending less money away to pay for fossil fuels and you're keeping more money in the local economy. This money for capital investments that reduce, is a thing we'll come back to currently. Yeah. The money for municipal projects, I want to kind of give you a couple of the really big headlines here. The first is that for solar or geothermal projects, local governments can get a 30% credit from Treasury. And essentially, this isn't, you have to apply for a competitive grant and you might get it. This is Treasury is going to post a form where essentially you say, hey, we spent $1 million on these projects in our facility, and Treasury will go, here's your $300,000 check back. Similarly, there will be a program for energy efficiency where there are tax credits where if you reduce the energy use intensity of a building by 25% or more. And there will be tax credits that you can get as cash on electric vehicles, light duty electric vehicles, heavy duty electric vehicles. Interestingly, the light duty credit is going to apply to commercial scale riding lawnmowers. So you might have some like other projects in your city or village that you can get funding for there. This is a thing we talk about and actually strategize a lot at the county about. And I just want to, those federal credits are going to reduce the cost of capital investments that ultimately reduce your community operating costs. So if you do energy efficiency at a building or solar that cuts your electric usage, or you upgrade some vehicles to electricity and you reduce your fuel and maintenance costs, all of those projects reduce your operating costs. So you're doing one-time capital that creates breathing room inside the levy limits. This is a strategy we use all the time at the county, that, you know, if we can retrofit one of our buildings so that we save energy and reduce our utility bills, that gives us more room inside the levy limits to do the other things we need to do. And the most important takeaway for you today here is that the IRA is sort of the best opportunity probably in our lifetime for you to pursue big projects in this realm. So I mentioned that you can do things with communities, with the entities in your communities, as well as your own facilities.
The sound is not working.
Sharon, can you mute yourself? So businesses, schools, nonprofits, just like your local government can get these credits, other entities can get these credits for renewable projects, for energy efficiency, for electric vehicles. And then on the residential side, there is just a plethora of programs and incentives for residents. There are actually a couple of new federal programs to help with energy efficiency and home electrification that will be run through the state. So those will take a little while to roll out, but there are also tax credits for homeowners. So what will happen is those new state programs will have income eligibility requirements, typically up to about 150% of median area income. And then households above that will qualify for the tax credits. They'll also get a 30% renewable energy tax credit for systems. And the system installation goes back to this year. So if you happen to put solar on your own house this year, you can get this 30% credit. And then electric vehicle credits too. There's a national group called Rewiring America, and I put a link here to they have this really cool calculator where you can put in a zip code and some information about a household, and it will show you all of the programs and tax credits that household qualifies for. So the calculator has in the background the area median income for every zip code. It has the whole tax code back there. So it's calculating all of those things based on what you're saying. So it's a pretty cool resource to give you a sense of all of the opportunities that are going to be available there for households in your community. And so I want to get you thinking about this in some sort of strategic, broader ways. Carolyn talked about coordination at the beginning. That's definitely a theme of everything I'm saying here. One of the places where I think the IRA can be a game changer is in helping us have more energy efficient, affordable housing. So there are those new programs that will target households that make too much money to qualify for low-income weatherization, but might not still have enough money to pay for home upgrades. We're going to have new programs there. Those programs are going to serve landlords and tenants as well as homeowners. And there's also a provision to create some new green bank financing if there are more financial gaps there. So we've got some resources here to help us with the existing housing stock. There's also a really sweet tax credit for builders that applies to single and multifamily construction, where if they build really efficient construction, they can get up to $5,000 a unit as a tax credit from the IRS. And obviously for multifamily, that starts to add up really quickly. So there are good opportunities. There are also going to be a number of grants specific to environmental justice issues that are going to roll out over the next couple of years through all of this. So a lot of opportunities, I think, for us to work together on affordable housing. Another place where I think we'll want to work together is on EV charging. So the Wisconsin Department of Transportation got $78 million already through the infrastructure bill, and their focus is on fast charging along key transportation corridors, which are all of the green roads on this map, including the dotted ones. So you see these yellow circles where there's currently a fast charger that meets the new federal specifications. Essentially, DOT is going to guarantee that there are yellow circles across all of these key roads going forward. When you look at Dane County on this map, you see that almost all of Dane County is within 25 miles of that EV charger that's just off Highway 30 there. What that means is there's sort of a second wave of funding that's going to look at chargers that are less about people traveling on the highway and more about commuters and maybe people in apartments where they don't have access to a garage and a charger kind of thing. And the good news on that front is that the Greater Madison Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, has launched an initiative to figure out where do we need additional EV charging infrastructure in Dane County. And they're going to come out with, I think, some really good analysis that can help us collaborate on that issue. There is a little bit of money in the IRA for EV charging tax credits, but it is pretty narrowly defined who qualifies for that. I'm not expecting that funding to be super helpful to us in Dane County. The whole idea, though, here about the potential for cross-community collaboration from my perspective is really important. So we have a tradition of this. You know, 7 Dane County communities came together and got an Office of Energy Innovation grant in 2019 to do comprehensive energy planning together. Since then, we've seen school districts come together and other communities come together around these things. And it works really well. We get further faster. It's part of why we created the Sustainability Leaders Collaborative, really trying to bring local governments and school districts together to do these things in a collaborative way. Certainly, other examples, I just talked about the MPO's effort to address EV charging gaps. I think there are other cross-community discussions where we might be able to take advantage of funding together. You know, we've got the great work my colleagues are doing around the regional housing strategy and how, again, there's a bunch of new money here that might help us make that housing more energy efficient. The tree canopy working group, there are funds here for urban and community tree plantings that could help us address some of that loss of tree canopy in the county. And lots of you have done updated natural disaster hazard mitigation plans under the infrastructure bill. There is going to be money for green infrastructure that we might be able to apply for collaboratively. And in this realm, I think you should just, because these two bills happened relatively close together and there are so many pieces of each of them, I'm expecting that there's going to be a steady stream of grant opportunities for the next couple of years, that we're going to have different things that we go, oh, here's an interesting thing that some of our communities might want to come together around. So, you know, you should expect that we're going to see and talk about those opportunities for a while here. I am very often in conversations at this point saying that the Inflation Reduction Act is a game changer. And partly it's a game changer because it's creating revenue to support efforts that we didn't have revenue to support before. So this is really exciting. But this only works if we take advantage of it. You know, part of the trick of tax credits is these are not formula fundings. If nobody applies for the tax credit in Wisconsin, nobody will get that money. I can envision a scenario where these tax credits go disproportionately to the coasts where there's been more activity in some of these realms. My quest is to make sure that a bunch of tax credits come here to Wisconsin. So how do I think we do that? I think there kind of are three layers of this. The first is for our cities and villages to really integrate these Inflation Reduction Act opportunities into your sustainability planning. So if you've got a clean energy plan or a climate action plan or a sustainability plan, I think this is the moment to look at that list of projects, and projects that seemed too expensive may have just gotten a 30% discount on their purchase price. So you want to really think about that. And I think I really want to know too about where do you have priorities that maybe are easier to pursue in a cross community way? Let's figure that out. If you're one of our communities, and I have my handy little map over there of who has active sustainability committees, if you haven't already, this is the perfect time to launch a sustainability committee to start talking about where your opportunities are. And the good news is, if you're just starting out, you can learn from your neighbors on it. We've got great examples and people who are really willing to share out what they've learned. And definitely, Stoughton has been launching this process recently, and they've been working with county extension staff on that. And I know extension is happy to help other folks. The other thing is, and I've mentioned a couple of times, so the Sustainability Leaders Collaborative, there's a page on our website of resources. We do some webinars. I do a monthly newsletter where I try to share out opportunities. And certainly it's always reasonable to just email or call me and go, hey, this is my question. So that's all about you starting to think about how you're going to use the IRA in your own operations. Then, of course, we want to use the IRA across our communities. And so I think as we see IRA funding supporting public facilities, that creates a good example that we can use to leverage businesses and nonprofits along the way. The village of McFarland is finishing their public safety building. It is going to qualify for some IRA tax credits. So they're going to be an early example that we can use to fire up other folks. And in all of this, what I see our office doing is talking about where these opportunities are, offering technical assistance. So I'm chatting with Andrew Bramer in McFarland as he figures out that application to get his rebate from the federal government. We're going to want to learn from that so we can help other cities and villages do that process more easily. There is, from where I sit, also a really strong need to get this information out in bite-sized, manageable ways to everyone in our community. And so I'm committed that our office, as specific tax credits and programs are up and running and the forms are on the website, we're going to have a web page where you can see what's available and see the link to get it. We're also, though, aiming to kind of package this information. So I have this little sample over here of be talking about a very specific funding opportunity, who's eligible, what it entails, and where the link is, that we'll be able to feed those opportunities out to our networks, including our local governments and school districts, so that you can share in your communications as well. Because this is how we guarantee that everybody knows about these opportunities and takes advantage of them in a way that can really accelerate action here in Dane County. And with that, I'll pause there just a second. So my email is up so everyone sees that on the recording, but then I'm going to stop sharing so we can talk about this, because that was enough of me talking.
Kathy, could I ask you just one question to start? Would you mind coming back to DCCVA if there is something where it makes sense to do another one of these workshops, and just to offer to, basically the way we've done it is that one of our board members has been the host when we've done that in the past, that I would be happy to be your conduit for that. And hopefully that'll help get the information out to our community too. This very well attended meeting. So
yeah, definitely. And I really do see this is a great forum for Carolyn, as it very probably is the case that McFarland is going to lead in terms of filing for some of these credits, because you're going to have a building that gets done immediately when the credits are available. And so, yeah, I think that I really don't know that I can emphasize enough that giving local governments, so there are not caps on those tax credits. You know, if you do a $5 million project, you get 1.5 million back from the federal government. And it is just filing a form. It's not a grant where you have quarterly reports and all that. This is going to be way better. Bob, you have a question.
I do. I have to run for another meeting here pretty quick, but Kathy, can you explain a little bit further by what you mean by home electrification? That was in one of your slides.
Yeah, there is going to be a program. And again, this will be for households up to 150% of area median income. It is expected to cover electrical panel upgrades, heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, induction stoves, sort of a variety of appliances that would upgrade homes. I think for some of our communities, like I think about Stoughton, where you've got a preponderance of older homes, that panel upgrade support is like super important. And that's not ever been available through other programs. You know, that's not really an energy efficiency measure. It enables other things that will reduce your energy costs. But and for some households that will, so for households under 80% median area income, that can cover up to 100% of the cost of those measures. So a really amazing program. And again, that program is going to be run through the state. I'm advocating a lot that it run through Focus on Energy because they already have the infrastructure to do this. That's not confirmed yet, but I'm hopeful that we'll leverage some of that to make it happen.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
Folks are welcome to just raise their hand, and Kathy will call on you. She'll take as many questions as she can before 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Yep, Kelly?
Hi, have you heard anything about stacking incentives between IRA tax rebates and Focus on Energy money? Like, for example, we're putting solar on a couple utility wells. Would that, and we'll get the Focus on Energy rebate from that, which is quite substantial. But then if we also got a 30% tax rebate, that would almost make the situation, we should just put solar on every single well we have in the city, or, you know, it would change, it would be a huge game changer.
Yeah, so it's definitely the case that you can stack Focus on Energy incentives with any of the federal incentives. My understanding is, you know, Focus has had higher incentives for cities and nonprofits because you couldn't access tax credits. Well, going forward, you'll be able to access tax credits. So it's likely that Focus incentive for cities and nonprofits is going to go down. It's going to go back to what it is for business. But in every discussion I've been in with Focus, they're saying if you were in the queue and you have the approved paperwork for the higher incentive, you're just lucky. You just hit this at the, you know, you hit the jackpot here and you get both sets of incentives. It's kind of, I mean, the village of McFarland didn't know they were going to get federal tax credits for their building. Sometimes karma is good and you demonstrate leadership and the stars align and you get funding that rewards you for that leadership. And so, yeah, I have every expectation you'll be able to tap both things for those projects, Kelly. Who else?
Come on, we need to ask Kathy the hard questions. I could ask you my question, Kathy, that sort of precipitated me wanting,
Sure. Yeah.
me talking to you in the first place, which was not actually related to these two funding mechanisms, but related to taking lease payments or renewable energy credits for a solar project, and what the difference between those two was and what the difference in our impact was depending upon which route we chose. Could you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the village of McFarland was doing a project where they're leasing land to a utility to do a solar array, and Dane County is doing a project like this with Alliant, the Yahara Solar Project. So if your community has clean energy goals, you want the renewable energy credits from that project, because you can't claim that you're doing something clean energy if you don't have those renewable energy credits. So the advice, what I said to Carolyn was, for us, we would always prefer to take the RECs than a lease payment, because as our markets evolve, that lease payment might not buy you renewable energy credits from somewhere else. And having the renewable energy credits is really the only way to say, yeah, we're really as green as our goals are. So for them to say, well, it was built on our land, but we don't have the credits. No, that's not giving you anything, kind of thing. Sharon.
Sure, quick question. Thanks, Kathy. I'm wondering if there's ideas for how to get the word out about home electrification and other benefits to households for households that are of low income. And I'm wondering if there's any partnerships with like Habitat for Humanity or Project Home or other nonprofits that have great connections already.
Yeah, so certainly, one of the things so Dane County is part of a network of communities across the state that are that have ambitious climate and clean energy goals. Middleton and Sun Prairie and McFarland are also part of that network locally in Madison. We've been talking to the state low-income weatherization program. So Project Home is who implements that program locally, about how those new electrification initiatives fit in with the increased weatherization funding. And so how those initiatives grow together. So yes, the short answer is yes, there are starting to be conversations with groups, including Habitat. Habitat just announced that they're working in collaboration with a number of entities to put solar on 49 Habitat homes across the state. And I think you're going to see more and more of those kinds of initiatives as we go forward. Again, the tax credits are in place for 10 years, so that gives us some time to really build momentum in some of these spots. At the same time, we know as local governments that it can take a couple of years from concept to fruition for a project. So I think it's important for our local governments to start planning to do these things quickly. I'm seeing, sorry, I got Lisa from Middleton asked a question about how in the chat about how municipalities prioritize to have the greatest impact. And, I think about the greatest impact in a couple of ways. I mean, certainly you want to have a big bang for your buck, but some projects ripple across communities in really important ways. And so when our public buildings, our schools and city and village halls go green, that can influence businesses and residents in your community in a substantial way. You're demonstrating the proof of concept here in a really important way. So I think as you think about which projects have the biggest impact, you always have to take into account, can we start a movement with our project? And Andrew asked, are municipalities limited in the number of tax credit projects they can submit in any year? I have not seen any limit, Andrew. That's the sort of beauty of this is, some of these tax credits are also applying on a national basis to much bigger solar projects. So yeah, I think you've got real opportunity there to take advantage of this in a way that, again, regular grants programs wouldn't give us that opportunity. Steve Steinhoff asks if the SolSmart program will be useful in taking advantage of this. So SolSmart is a national certification program that communities can go through to ensure that their permitting processes enable solar to happen in their communities. And Steve and I have been talking about CARPC working with our office to help more communities across our region understand SolSmart and potentially get SolSmart certification. And yes, definitely. I think, what SolSmart is about, making it easy for businesses and residents to get solar on their rooftops, essentially. And communities that make it easy in terms of local permitting for that are going to be helping those residents get those tax credits and keep those dollars in their local community. Kelly asks about the $7,500 EV rebate only applies to specific cars, and will it be retroactive to 2022? So I don't think the new EV credits are effective in 2023. It is not clear yet if the restrictions that apply to individual purchases, so under the tax credit for individuals, there are requirements around batteries being produced in North America for those vehicles, and there are restrictions on the cost of vehicles. You can't get the $7,500 tax credit on a $200,000 electric Ferrari or something. And there are also income tax. Very wealthy individuals won't be able to claim the EV credits as individuals. The details on the commercial side, Kelly, are not, I've not seen very clear language there yet. I'm not sure if the same restrictions are going to apply in terms of where batteries are made. The thing I will say about that is it seems like everybody who makes EVs is figuring out how to get their EVs qualified for the new US incentives and to get batteries made in North America. So I think that is going to shift pretty quickly so that they're all available. Given the delay in vehicles coming, we can hope that it's a little bit, resolved by the time your order comes in. Tim, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was wondering if there's any grants or funding in the IRA for planning for sustainability plans and such.
So I think that there isn't a separate category of that. I actually think the best place for you to get planning support right now is the Office of Energy Innovations Energy Innovation Grant Program. Are you familiar with that?
No, but I will be.
Yeah, and so applications are open right now. It seems like it's the end of January when those applications are due, and they have a category where they fund energy planning. And that's a little bit friendlier because it's a state thing, and yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. A question about Teresa asking about that some projects that some of the tax credits are retroactive to 2022. Monona Grove high school did a big solar project that was completed in 2022. Teresa, I think you guys want to look into that. It's clear that I know that the residential tax credit goes back. I think the commercial one goes back to 2022. So yes, I'm happy to send you some more stuff specific to that one. The solar energy industry put out a good 10-page flyer about those tax credits that might be useful there. I should mention the thing that was included with the slide deck is from the C40 cities, kind of an overview of how the IRA can help city accelerate climate action, kind of thing, that seemed nicely put together for that kind of thing.
Thanks so much, Kathy. I really appreciate everything you do. Yeah.
Other questions? So I'm wondering about our smaller cities and villages. I'm telling you that this is all possible for you. Does it seem in the realm of possible? I guess I would welcome any thoughts on what else our office needs to do to help support you realizing any of these incentives in your local operations. Are there more things you need?
If you don't mind me just popping in here, this is Teresa Rodermacher. I would just say that every time I have ever reached out to Kathy, she responds within minutes, and she has so much knowledge to share, and she's always so helpful. So as far as what more you can do, Kathy, I love presentations like this. It's very interesting. I would also encourage, what more can we do? We all need to reach out to you, because as soon as you do, you won't regret it.
That's lovely, Teresa. I think sometimes you pick the right time to reach out to me. It's not always just minutes. But we do. It's a priority of our office that we always follow up with local communities and try to figure out who we can connect you to that can help you with issues. But you're doing a lot as local officials. It's not a trivial thing for me to, say, hey, there's this whole new arena of things you should start thinking about.
Yeah, point taken.
Well, Teresa, I appreciate you saying that, because that was my experience with reaching out to Kathy. And it was a reason I wanted to bring her to this group, because I think once you've met someone, even over Zoom, even in a, kind of not the way we used to think we met people, but now we have the Zoom meet. Once you meet people and you kind of know what they're about, it helps to break down some of those barriers. And one thing that I could think of is perhaps sharing this with the presentation, the slides with the Dane County Towns Association, so that they have the information that we've received, and that if they're interested in reaching out directly to Kathy for their own presentation, that they could, and perhaps in the future, if they would like to be invited to our any meeting that we might do with Kathy in the future, we can make sure you send over the link, but that might be helpful.
Thanks, Carolyn. And we actually, as luck would have it, Sharon at Extension has connected me with Renee Lauber at the Towns Association, and we are talking about how we have some conversation there too, definitely. Danelle.
Hey, thank you so much for this. I've been thinking about throughout this presentation how to connect more with the businesses and the schools, and just like you were talking about, I think the biggest thing would be helping make all those connections. And I'm already thinking about all the people I want to send this slideshow or this presentation to, but I'm wondering about having presentations like this that are targeted at different stakeholder groups like businesses or school districts, getting them together?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's also one of the things we've been talking about at the county is because there are so many opportunities here for businesses, we're planning some outreach to the local chambers to try to, because the reality is I could set up lots of, it's much better for the Cities and Villages Association to say, hey, Kathy, come talk to us at our meeting that we have that we know who to invite to, versus me going, oh, I should just do a webinar and people should hear about it. And, the lift is, we want to go where the people already are. So certainly a thing any community can approach us with any time is, hey, we have this place where the right people are, and we want you to come and talk about these things, bring some examples of projects that are getting funded. Let's get, whether it's your business community or tied to school districts or nonprofits. Again, just like this gives you local governments access to those tax credits, it gives your nonprofits access, your faith communities, your other local nonprofits that own buildings, community centers, senior centers. There are lots of opportunities here to reduce those energy costs for various stakeholders in your community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like the city, people who are involved in city government can connect those different groups to the larger community, the like similar groups throughout Dane County, and then you could be the presenter, but we can all help by connecting those groups to you. Also.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And thinking about where those platforms are or what specific, because I was out in Stoughton with you all for your event, I know that one of your issues out there is you've got a lot of older housing stock that really could benefit from some of these efficiency and electrification upgrades. And, those issues are going to be different in different communities. Again, my big goal in this is that we get record amounts of federal funding flowing to Dane County projects so that, we're blowing our clean energy and climate goals out of the water.
I had one specific question. You had said that there's 30% tax credit for renewable energy. That was one that you said for specifically like 10 years. Is that for all of the tax credits?
All of the tax credits are 10 years. Yeah. They're,
wow.
And even because they're tax credits, most of the people who are experts on federal policy think there's very little chance that will change. Nobody wants to be the Congress who's like, yay, we got rid of the tax credits that businesses were using, sort of thing. So they do expire in 2032. Well, or the solar ones start ramping down then actually, but a number of the other ones expire. But yeah, this is a 10-year window. So, we have some time to have waves. I guess I think about this in waves. I'm thinking local governments and some of our school districts are going to start taking advantage of these credits out the gate and see some big checks coming. And then that will prompt other people to raise their heads and go, hey, wait, could we get funding for something like that? And we'll see another wave of announcements, and it will roll through our communities a little bit.
Okay, I have one last question and then I'll stop talking. Okay, so you had talked about for the EV charging infrastructure, the focus on getting those charging stations. I was wondering, in addition, like kind of in conjunction with that, is there talk or plans to also have like solar and other renewable energy production connected specifically to those charging stations? It's
a great question. The the work the MPO is doing right now is really to sort of understand, where do we have EV charging now? Where is our growth? Where are the big gaps? I think once they identify those gaps, then it's really going to be up to all of us to think about what's the best way to fill those gaps. And so, and that could be, you know, little solar installations that feed those charging stations. That's entirely in the realm of possible, you know, and it's really, I guess the way I'm thinking about the MPO work is they're going to help us understand where the gaps are. And then we're going to need to think about, well, what do we want to do about those gaps? And there is, under the infrastructure bill, there will be some grant funding available for EV charging investments. And because that's a transportation thing, it's most likely that will flow through or with the MPO. I'm going to say that way. I think I saw Bill Schaefer on the call earlier. He can correct me there if he thinks that's wildly wrong.
Hey, Kathy. Yeah. So there is some money that that we have. There is that one of the programs that wasn't mentioned is there is this carbon reduction program, and we're going to be getting $1 million a year under that program. We did this past year fund some EV charging infrastructure projects with that, along with some projects to convert streetlights to LED. And so that's one pot of money. And then the formula funds under the EV infrastructure program, which is, you know, specifically the formula funds go to the state. And I'm not sure at this point whether any of that is going to be distributed down to the MPOs. It's not required to be, like with the carbon reduction program, where we get a specific allocation, but there also is a discretionary program part of that. There's discretionary funding where communities can apply nationally, you know, to US DOT, and that hasn't been rolled out yet, you know, the guidance and criteria and all that, but that would be another opportunity, but more difficult, obviously, when you're competing, you know, nationally versus with a set amount of funding for, you know, for our area, say. Sure.
Although to me, that's a good example of a potential place for collaboration. That if the effort you're undertaking right now identifies, for example, 5 really clear gaps in EV charging where we should have some more significant, and it maybe crosses 4 or 5 communities sort of thing, doing a collaborative application to that competitive process would be more compelling than one of our communities trying to address one of those gaps on their own.
Yes, very, very good point, and something that we would definitely be interested in. And in fact, that's the approach we're taking with the safety program, Safe Streets and Roads for All. Is we're not only working to develop the plan to allow communities to apply for that funding, which is this, you know, discretionary national program, but then also work with interested communities to put together a regional application. So we could do the same thing for that program.
Awesome. So I am sticking my email once more in the chat, just so you all have it.
Are there any last questions for Kathy today? We're at 12:56, so we do want to keep to time. And we really appreciate your time today, Kathy, and you answered some complicated questions. You know, nice to see some folks here who can just jump in and help out. Bill, I saw, let's see, Steve Steinhoff was here, Sharon, you were here. You know, Teresa jumping in and talking about your projects in Monona is great. I don't see any other questions or anyone else with their hands up. So Kathy, thank you so incredibly much for joining us today. It's really exciting to see how many people jumped on this call and, are interested and willing to talk about this. We can keep the conversation going within DCCVA. We're stronger together. These are complicated things that, no one has really done before. So it's very, very helpful to collaborate, to share information, to share resources. We can increase our reach. It's one of the things that I love the most about participating in DCCVA is it gives us a forum as local governments to talk to each other, share information, know each other, and make other cool and interesting things happen. So thank you, Kathy, for presenting today. Thank you, Anne, for setting this up. And thank you all for participating. If you have other thoughts and things that you'd like to hear, also would be happy to continue to facilitate conversations or other speakers. This is a fairly new program that DCCVA is rolling out. We did a handful of them. And so we're just kind of learning and growing into this format. It's obvious, it's very, something that was changed a lot in COVID that we were more comfortable with this format, but this organization hasn't used this type of low-key format. So definitely reach out if you're interested in any other topics. If you'd like to lead a topic, there is certainly opportunity for that as well. And we will see y'all another time. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.